357 mag versus 9mm+P in our short barrel test today. And what I'm testing today is our Barnes TAC-XPD. This is the Barnes TAC-XP bullet, but they put the D at the end, standing for defense. So Barnes TAC-XPD. So a 357 mag, from all accounts, it does look like it's meant to be a short barrel load because it is a 125 grain rated at 1200 feet per second. Our 9mm is actually a 9mm+P 115 grain rated at only 1120 feet per second. So that's a pretty slow rating for it being a +P, but that does make some sense because copper bullets go deeper in the case. So even if you have a high pressure, you don't necessarily have a large powder capacity, and that can sometimes lower your velocity, but that could also lower the felt recoil, which could be a good thing. And being a solid copper hollow point, and they do have some sort of coating on them which would prevent corrosion. Being a copper hollow point, they could perform actually pretty well at lower energy numbers. So we're going to see what we get today, and I'm going to use my Taurus 605 at the 2-inch barrel for our 357 Magnum, and our Taurus G2C with the 3.2-inch barrel. The reason why is because of the same overall bullet travel and gun size. 3.2 inch is almost exactly the same amount of barrel travel as a 2-inch revolver, because the chamber is included in a semi-automatic measurement. So we're going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test, where I'm going to go into plain clear ballistics to see what the best potential is of those cartridges and of those bullet designs. Then after that, I'm going to put on 4 layers of cotton t-shirt on the front of this first 3 inches here that represents a pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiberboard that's going to represent ribs or sternum. That'll be more of our real world or worst case scenario test to see how those bullets perform that way. And then after that, I am going to shoot at my steel silhouette. I'm going to stick to 12 yards today because I want to see what kind of practical follow-up shots I can make with the 357 Magnum snub nose. So let's get started with this test. All right, first up we have our 9mm+P. It's rated at 1120 feet per second. It doesn't say what barrel length it's rated from. However, our 357 mag says it's 1200 feet per second through a 2-inch barrel listed on the box. So let's see how close we get to 1120 feet per second out of this 3.2-inch Taurus here. $10.90, $10.72, $10.78, $10.68, $10.74. So probably a 4-inch barrel that was rated out of. Our velocity is pretty good, and that last shot there, something's hung up here. That was an actual round that didn't feed correctly, and I did clean this pistol right before I came out here. So I'll pick up that round and we'll run the 357 mag over the chronograph. And I chambered another round and it stuck. So there's something about the brass or something where there's variables there, variances, where it's not quite fitting this chamber quite correctly. All right, 357 mag right at 1200 feet per second. Let's see what this gives us. 1296, wow. 1261, 1233, 1204, 1161. So not particularly consistent. Quite a bit of flash, to be honest. Our recoil was okay. It wasn't brutal. It's kind of in between a hot 38+P and a typical 357 mag. So I wouldn't necessarily consider this like a short barreled load. It felt a little bit snappier than that. Case ejection's fine. So let's start our ballistics job lock with these and see what we get. All right, we're going to do our best potential into plain clear ballistics. So I'm going to try to re-rack that first round that gave me trouble. See if it chambers fine. It seems to chamber fine. So plain clear ballistics, here's our 9mm. All right. Now let's hit that with our 357 Magnum. It did seem to feed it fine that second time around, which is kind of weird. There's our 357 mag. Let's see what this does. Let's go take a look. right, so there's definitely a difference there. Interesting, it does look like that 9mm curved up a little bit after it went in there. So, you know, technically when I read these numbers, there's more penetration than what I'm going to line it up with because it curved, but I like to just use the straight numbers because it's easier to follow that way. But what we're looking at here is with our 9mm, we got an adequate penetration of about 13¼ inches. And we have some pretty good expansion. Petals are straight out, they're not peeled back or anything. As we're on our 357 mag, I can kind of see the petals peeled back from more energy on that bullet. So we're right at about 16 inches even. So let's put in our MDF that represents our ribs, put on our fabric, and see how they compare that way. All right, this next one's our second round that didn't feed right in our chronograph section there. Let's see how it does through 4 layers of cotton t-shirt, 3 inches of clear ballistics, a 1/4 inch MDF. So let's see how our 9mm does. Let's try our 357 now. All right, 357 mag. Let's see how this compares. Let's go take a look. All right, so here's our MDF. Here's our bottom shot with our 9mm, our top shot with our 357 mag. It does appear in the first 3 inches here, they're both expanding. But there's a big difference there in our overall penetration. At least a big difference when it comes to getting enough or not getting what is standard to be enough. The difference is it isn't any greater than in our plain gel, but we want to see at least 12 inches of penetration in gel. And what we're seeing here is with our 9mm, we got about 10¾ inches. And I wanted to point out that this camera I use is a widescreen, so sometimes it projects those projectiles completely different than where they're actually at, which is kind of weird. But I have to mention that because sometimes it'll look like my finger is lined up with perfectly correct on the measurement, but it'll look like the bullet is back like an inch. So yeah, that's a big thing there. But what we see with our 357 mag is we got a little bit more consistent, better penetration, and we have a penetration of spot on of right at 12 inches. So clear ballistics is a little bit less dense than real gel, but that's going through MDF. So I'm going to say overall, judging from, you know, plain gel and clear ballistics together, I'm going to say our 9mm is a little bit shallow. I'd like to see a little bit better performance than that, but that is pretty low velocity, you know, so that's kind of what I would expect to see. Our 357 mag does really well, but not quite as well as it should do for the amount of recoil it has. So let me shoot my steel, see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these. All right, here's our bullets up close. We can see the ones with our plain gel here versus the one with our MDF. And we can see that, you know, this is our 357 mag through plain gel. This is our 357 through MDF. You know, it hit harder, it stripped off more of that black coating, so, you know, we can definitely tell a difference there. So here is our 9mm through our plain gel. Like I said before, looked like the petals were sticking straight out, as where the 357 was bent back more. So probably a larger diameter, but that doesn't necessarily mean it did better. So yeah, so here's our 9mm here, gel MDF, 357 mag, MDF gel, or MDF in the back, gel in the front there. So that's a close-up of those bullets. All right, I'm 12 yards from the target. I want to try the 357 mag first, just so I can see my hits on target a little bit easier, just see how they feel for me for practical accuracy. So here's our 357. Hold one a little bit high there. These cases are just like the 9mm. Some of them are not quite right. They're bulged out. But have to really push to get this in it. And like my 9mm, I cleaned this right before I came out. So let me try to land them faster. So it's really hard to actually control that. It's not really as light of recoiling as what I thought it would be. It feels like a full power, not quite a full power, but almost. 357. So here's our 9mm. Let's see how this feels. There we go. So, all things considered, when it comes to these particular rounds, I think I'd rather have the 9mm just because the round count, it's easier to put them on target, and it's nearly as effective, at least in our ballistic gel testing there. Now with our 357 mag, that is okay round. It was reliable. I didn't have any really issues other than having a little bit of issue when I tried to reload there, just a little bit sticky cases. But overall, I'm going to say it's pretty good round overall. You know, our ballistic performance is really good, but it is really kind of odd to see those cases not being quite right. You know, I have bulge cases, and that made a bigger difference in this because, you know, when you load a revolver, you've loaded your chamber before you go out. You know it works fine. The semi-automatic, you don't load your chamber until you need it when it semi-automatically loads. And you know those bigger than normal cases, even though they're nickel plated, I had the two feed jams there, so that was kind of odd. So for me, it's going to be a pass on this ammo. You know, ballistically they did fine, but I think there's better choices out there. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.